Eye on Southwest Louisiana Sports, sponsored by Gordon McKernan.
Hi, I'm Jim Gazzolo, back with Eye on Southwest Louisiana Sports. This edition, softball. Our guest, head coach from McNeese State University, James Landreneau. Coach, third year coming in, but you've been a part of this program for 7 years. You've seen it come up from the bottom. What are your expectations this year, but more importantly, where's the program at?
You know, I really like where our program is, and it's been really cool to be a part of it and see the growth over the last 7 years. Every year, fan base and the interest in the sport in the area, and just getting to visit with people in the area that say they've never been to a softball game. They came to a softball game either last year, year before, now they're season ticket holders. Just to actually see that we have a season ticket base now, you know, compared to where we were a couple years ago. And what's really unique is if you take our assistant, you know, our two assistant coaches in Katie Rue and Danny Price, you know, they were both former players, and they talk about the stories of not a whole lot of interest when they first started playing. And, you know, Danny comes from Baylor, and one day we look up for inter-squad. She's like, Coach, that's more people in the stands for inter-squad than we used to get when I played. So it's been special to see it, but it's also been special to have those former players come back and coach and be a part of the continuous growth that we have.
That's one thing I've noticed about this softball program, starting with Mike Smith 7 years ago, or 10 years ago almost now, is the growth of the following. Seems every year you get a bigger following. 3 NCAA tournaments in a row has helped that, obviously. Or where is it, though, as the following goes when you go out in the community and now you recruit? Do you have that national brand?
Yeah, I think more and more you're getting to, when you're out the state, or people know who you are. You know, they get to, I think TV's helped a bunch with that. You know, being able to get on ESPN3 and ESPN and regionals, I think those exposures help. I think consistent success is where your name really gets out there. And, you know, last year getting a couple rankings in the top 25, people get to read about it a little bit more. And I think within the community, the biggest difference, and I tell people all the time, what helps get that fan base is really our players. I really have to give credit to our players. And I think we've always had good players, people just exposed to them more. But I think when you watch the passion they play and how grateful they are for the things that they get and the opportunity to play this game.
7 years ago when you were recruiting and you'd go to California, did people know about McNeese, and is it that much different now?
It is a little different. I think that's where we still get humbled. We naturally assume that they don't. And you know, we tell people go look on the website, and they kind of try to find out where McNeese is. It's in Louisiana. You'll still get humbled, you know, at times. Yes, in the past, Jim, when we first started, there wasn't a lot of notice of, are y'all Division I? Are y'all Division II? Or is it an NAIA school? Where's it at? What state it's in? Now people kind of know, for the most part, that it's follow softball. But you'll still, man, last year, I'm sitting there watching youth, actually a professional game, and a guy's like, man, he starts having a conversation with me, and we're only about 2 hours from Lake Charles, so it's not that Lake Charles is really far from. And the guy asked me, he said, what you do? I said, I coach at McNeese. He said, okay. He said, is that an NAIA school or junior college? You know, so you still have those moments where people are not aware of who we are, but we like to think that we're getting out there.
One thing about this area is it is very big in softball. Yeah. The state comes here once a year. The state championships are played in Sulphur. Yep. We had the professional championships 2 years in a row played in Sulphur a while back. Wounded Warriors played softball here a few years. How big is it to have softball be big in this area? Because you're also competing against Lafayette is a very well-known program. LSU is a big program. Yeah. They're within your own state. You got some Texas schools that are big. How important is it to have that base here as being a good area?
Yeah, I think the more people get exposed to it, they like it. It's a fast-paced game, and it is, because, you know, if you just travel I-10 within the state, there's a lot of good programs. So it's interesting with the success we had, getting people to come out to games, that our local fans are starting to pay attention more to fast pitch. I think softball in general is just on the upcoming. If you watch what they've done in the ratings as far as World Series play goes, it's been impressive. So I think as TV coverage gets a little bit better, people get exposed to a faster brand and a good brand of softball.
Are you seeing more girls play at a younger age too?
I think so. I think you're seeing there's definitely a lot more depth, especially within our state compared to where it was a couple of years ago. A lot more parity in high school sports. So I think there's a lot more interest in it right now, and I think it's really, television's done a great job of promoting it.
You guys have done a good job recruiting not only nationally, but the local kids as well. You've gotten your share. In fact, you had one a couple years ago come back from LSU to play your senior year. What are you guys doing? What are you able to show here that maybe would surprise people that McNeese is relatively at least talked about with elite programs?
Yeah, I think obviously when you look at our schedule, I think that dictates a lot of it. People kind of surprised when they see our schedule, how many nationally ranked teams we play and how many big schools that have noticed that we are on our schedule. The biggest thing for us is we've got to get them on campus. Once we get kids on campus and they see what our university has to offer and they see the people, I always say bricks and mortar never make for a great four-year experience. It's the people on campus that do. And once we get recruits on campus and we get former players come back and they see, and then they meet our players and they see that there's a lot more value in the sport than just wins and losses.
Lot going on this campus. Baseball program, getting new stadium done every year as far as an upgrade. Football's had upgrades in the weight room and that. Basketball, the facility we're in right now is brand new. But I think softball, because you're not in this campus right here, you're kind of out on your own out there, kind of gets forgotten about. You just had major upgrades at your facility. Obviously, Joe Miller money, just like with baseball, has come into play. You got the Southland tournament because of that. Is that helping you bring teams into play here?
Yeah, I think, right off the bat, just having a turf feel, because, when you're playing that early part of schedule, that February, March, everybody's worried about rainouts. Mm-hmm. And so for us to have the ability to say, as long as it's not thunder and lightning at that time, we're going to be able to play. So it's appealing for people to come in, especially the early part in that February time. And then as far as recruiting goes, players know that when you come here, you're going to get a chance to play on a surface every day, that you can go out there and compete. And you're not going to have rainouts, and and so you're getting more work in, as well as just aesthetics from the fans when they come to the park and they get a little bit excited with the upgrades in the stadium and having reserved seating now. So it's been a constant, and now we're able to enclose, down to the pitching facility, everything's covered in so you can get work in. So I think it's really coming together as a total place. It's a good place to come watch a game, as well as it's a great place to play in front of a home crowd and be able to practice all weekend.
Does it surprise some of the kids from the West Coast to see all the facilities now?
Yeah, I think it is. A lot of times, they don't realize when they come on, they walk on that field for the first time that it's different and it's a good environment. And aesthetically, Carl Vincent and Miss Carla with the scoreboard that they gave us last year, it's been tremendous. And if you kind of start to piece together, and when you really notice it is when you go back about 5 years ago and you realize when the bullpen area wasn't built and we didn't have bleachers on the sides, we didn't have a new scoreboard, an intimidated wall, and all the conference flags. Those things all kind of set that environment makes it really exciting for a game day experience.
I think that's one thing I think a lot of people who don't understand softball thinks, well, it's just a girls' version of baseball. Don't understand how fast-paced and exciting actually it is. I mean, your games can go an hour and 10 minutes and be done at times with pitching.
Yeah, if you're not careful, everybody says, we'll get there in an hour. So that's probably the seventh, if we're pitching really well. But yeah, it's definitely a fast pace. And if you come over from a baseball side where a game's going to last you 3 hours, it's a drastic difference. And they're doing things within the sport to keep it moving fast.
I want to get into maybe in the second segment a little bit more on your schedule itself. But I do want to emphasize this, we got a second here, is unlike the past, this year in the last couple of years you've said you open a lot of home games. Mm-hmm. That's kind of a shift. And is that part of the entertainment dollar that we talk about?
Absolutely. I think it's twofold. For one, for our players to be able to play in front of a home crowd brings excitement. And I think in the past we've been about getting out there for about 20 games or something and people just reading about us. I think there's something tangible about being able to go to the park and identify with your team and start to know your players and root for them. So I think that's been a tremendous part of growth. And our fans were asking for it. So that was one commitment I made when I got the job, is that y'all want home games, we're going to do our best to try to get them for you.
Obviously the facility is a big part of that. But do you find the fact that the weather worry you about the first 6 games?
It does, but it really doesn't. Wherever you go, you run really into that chance, unless you go out to the West Coast. You run into that chance of weather, getting rain. So I think we're fortunate that we have a good schedule, a field that can handle that weather. And but we've been in March and April where it's been cold and rainy, so it's a kind of a crapshoot down here.
Okay. When we come back with the head coach of McNeese State softball, we'll talk about the schedule and getting to the playoffs. When we come back on Southwest Louisiana Sports.
Watching your son get knocked down isn't easy, whether it's on the field or in life. But it was the times when life knocked John Gordon down that he learned the value of hard work and getting back up.
So are you nervous, son?
No, we've been practicing hard and staying focused.
Well, that hard work should pay off this season.
I got this, Pops.
People ask me if JG is going to play in college, but he just wants to work hard and win another state championship.
Values like this, hard work and getting back up, what we taught our kids are the same values we believe in at Gordon McKernan Injury Attorneys.
Call 888-8888.
I got hurt in a car wreck and some creepy insurance guy tried to get me to sign something.
Stop! Don't sign a thing!
After your car wreck, don't get cheated. Stop, think, and call me first.
In my case, Gordon got me $235,000. After a car wreck, stop, think, and get Gordon.
Better not stall if you want it all. You better make that call.
I'm attorney Gordon McKernan. Just call me. Get it done.
Get Gordon. Get it done.
Call 888-8888 or go to getgordon.com.
We're back with James Landreneau, McNeese State softball coach. And Coach, we talked a little bit about scheduling for your fans. Now let's talk about scheduling to impress the NCAA committee.
Yeah.
You mentioned something that surprised me a little bit. You said the last 3 years you got a call saying that you were in the, they believed you were in the tournament, the NCAA tournament, even if you didn't win the conference tournament. That must mean you're doing something to impress them during the year. How important is playing the big schools you play?
Yeah, absolutely.
And beating them. You got to beat them.
You got to win some of them, and I think what it is, you know, the NCAA committee looks at quality wins and they look at quality opponents. So anytime you're playing against top 25 teams, they see that you're trying to get out there, and it's twofold. You know, it's there. If you win those games, it helps you with that process to get into the tournament, but it also helps your team get a lot better as well. But I think those games are important for. It helps so many ways. It helps our kids with confidence of getting ready to play those teams, and when you get to that regional setting, it's not foreign to them. It helps you get in a regional, and it helps with recruiting. So I think
I want to ask you that because the kids want to play those games, but you and I both know those are a lot of those. After the first couple of weeks, are midweek games, and the midweek, while they're important to fans, important to the NCAA, you still got to win conference games too. How do you juggle that when it comes to can't be up for every game every day?
Yeah, that's an extremely tough process right there. Is, you know, it's grueling, you know, because that pressure of those conference games, then you got to get yourself ready for, you know, if you look at a Baylor coming in midweek or Lafayette or LSU. But that's when we have to really break with the kids and just slow everything down to one game. Okay, this is what we need to do for this particular game. So that's where, you know, that preparation and I think really trying to get in the film room of just not looking forward to the weekend or not making that game too big a game. It's an important game, and we want to win every game that we compete.
What do you ever worry about, especially with a team that may be younger 1 year, about putting too much on them, especially early when you play big schools? How do you How do you kind of balance that?
Yeah, it's tough because I'd be lying to you if I say, "Oh no, it's just another game. It's not a big deal." Because on paper, if you look at it, it's grueling, and you feel it during the season. So that's when we spend a lot of time on how to really compartmentalize the season and how to mentally prepare just for one team at a time. Because if you look at the whole schedule, it can be overwhelming. But if you're able to break it down for one game at a time, not get caught up in records, good or bad. You know, it doesn't matter what your record is. You got to go out there and perform and play well. So that's what we've been able to try to do with our team is let games go when they don't go your way, and when they go your way, it doesn't matter. We need to move on. So we kind of have a philosophy. I think a lot of people buy into it, but it's just hard to get your team to do. You got to truly play one game at a time.
NCAA tournament the last 3 years.
Yeah.
But you haven't won an NCAA regional yet.
No.
Is that the next step for this? Because when you go to a regional here and they do it by region, you're either probably going to go to Lafayette or LSU. So you're going to go play some big-time people.
Yeah.
Is that the next step of this program?
You know, it's interesting because that's what you're saying is, you know, 2 years in a row, I think we were in Baton Rouge. The last year we get sent to Texas A&M, and you face an A&M and a Baylor team that are outstanding teams. So it doesn't really matter where you go. You know it's going to be really good. That's what it's about. And yes, that's our goal. Like if we ever want to get to a World Series, it starts pretty simple. You got to win a regional. and we got to learn how to play against teams that are regional caliber throughout the year, not just one game. You got to play them consistently. So I think that's where we grow mentally, is where we need to grow. We need to be able to handle that kind of environment, those kind of teams on a consistent basis. So that's why you see the tough games back to back on the schedule.
No, I think the schedule looks like it prepares you for that. It's worked the last couple of years to get there, but then all of a sudden, like everything else, fans are going to say, what's the next step?
Yeah.
What's the next step?
Yeah.
And now comes the big question for you. And I'm not going to try to pronounce her name, her last name, but replacing Erica. I'll give you the last name. How do you replace somebody that had such an influence in your program? I'm not saying she was the most dominant player she was, but she also had such an influence nationally, got a lot of national attention, really made a name for herself and McNeese.
Yeah.
How do you replace that?
It's twofold for her, because obviously Erica Piancastelli's numbers were just unbelievable. Piancastelli. And so it's one of the, it was impressive. And then also you look what she did as a leader, for us being a selfless player, never really called attention to herself. But I think that tradition is passed on to our players, and they all know her enough, because even the kids that are the freshmen that are coming in, they still know who she is. And they, more importantly, know how she handled herself with success. So I think that kind of passes on to our team. As far as the numbers go, how you replace, every team's different and have to look a little different. And I like what our team's done. We're probably not going to be a team that's going to sit there and just hit as many home runs as we have in the past, because you had a kid like Morgan Catron that a lot of people don't realize. Morgan Catron has a tremendous impact to our offensive lineup. And that whole class was a winning class. They knew how to handle themselves. So for us, it's just really staying focused on how can we score runs. And we'll have to find some different ways to score runs this year. But, we had to last year. We had to sit there and bunt and manufacture some runs towards the end of the season.
As far as that goes, the legacy of her and the legacy of last year's team, which, like you said, that's kind of the team that took you to the regionals for 3 years.
Yeah.
Is that group. That legacy, building on it, where do you see that as this group comes up, and how important is it to keep in touch with those kids so that the legacy is passed on, like you said, bringing kids back?
I think it really is. I think touching into our alumni, even dating back to 1983 when they first started college softball at McNeese, is important, because it's an evolution of a program. If you could really see the groundwork all those teams played in the 80s, 90s, 2000s, and where we are now, it's always been evolving, and it's like now we get to see a fruit of all the hard labor that other people have put in. So I think even like last year's team really did a good job of building on what other teams have done before. Like even if you go to our coaching staff of Katie Rue and Danny Price, what they did as players and how they constantly were trying to grow it, and then it kind of starts to really take off. So I really think those things are important as we move forward.
And when you see that, the kids coming back, because so many of the kids are local kids, does that make it a family affair thing? That I know baseball talks about it a little bit, but so many local kids, they know each other, they play together for years. Does that make it easier for you to kind of get them to feel like a family?
It does, especially when they come back and tell their stories. I think like we had Alumni Weekend, and what's really cool about Alumni Weekend is you have kids from West Coast flying back. We had kids from the people, women that played here years ago flying back from the East Coast and coming really trying to tie into. I think that's what's special about our program, is that family atmosphere that you feel. And we definitely want to keep everyone involved and keep it growing. So when we win a game, we want everybody to be able to celebrate with us.
When we return for our final segment with the coach, we're going to talk about this year's team and what he expects from there, and this week in Southwest Louisiana Sports.
I can still remember Charlotte's first day of kindergarten like it was yesterday. Now, she's heading off to college. So how are you feeling?
I'm nervous. I'm also really excited.
You're the first McKernan to not go to LSU in decades. Promise me this, you'll wear purple and gold at all the UT football games.
Dad.
Letting go isn't easy, especially for this Louisiana dad, but our children know family is always there for them. Just like when our clients come to us for help, they'll always be part of the Get Gordon family. We want to be your lawyers for life.
Call 888-8888.
Gators are powerful and dangerous creatures, and I'm telling you, you don't want to mess with one of these guys on your own. You need a professional. Now, Mike here is a professional alligator handler. and I'm professional at taking on the insurance companies. And they can be just as dangerous and powerful as these gators, so be careful. Don't try to handle the insurance companies on your own. If you've been seriously injured, get a professional. Call me. Get it done.
Get Gordon. Get it done.
Call 888-8888 or go to getgordon.com.
Get Gordon, get it done.
Welcome back with James Landreneau and McNeese State softball. And just because there's a garbage truck outside, let's not make the last segment garbage time for us here. How's that? Coach, I want to get into a little bit on this year's team. But before we do, I have to ask you this. Okay. Mike Smith, the last coach here, left. Mm-hmm. The coach after him left for big programs. What are your thoughts on moving on eventually sometime? Or
Jim, I like to say that that's the first time I've been asked that question, but, recruits ask that question, as well as I think my first interview when I got the head job, I was asked that question. When I took the job, it wasn't to move on. It was to build something here and to do a great job, and to make sure I was present-minded for my players. I have two kids that live in Jackson, Aubrey here, and being a part of their life every day means more to me than a job. Being in their life means a lot to me. So I try to stay focused on just McNeese State right now and what we could do here, because I feel like we're building something really special, and I want to make sure that we're growing every single year.
Well, I only say that because there's always been the discussion here about coaches, and do you bring in coaches that want to leave eventually? Do you bring in, and I've always been the assumption or the belief that you want to bring in the right person, and if they leave in 3 or 4 years for a better job, that's fine. If they don't, that's fine too, but it's more important to get the right person. But anyway, so now let's talk about this year's team. Obviously, we talked a little bit about what you're replacing, but you mentioned something earlier about this group of seniors has never known anything under 40 wins. Yeah. Does that kind of breed the success that it kind of lends itself to take over a program?
Yeah, I do. I think that the biggest thing about that is you take the evolution over, I think we had like a 38-win season, then a 40-win season, and then we skip a year, then it's like 43, 43, 41. And I think right now you have players that know what it takes to get there, and they kind of just pass that on. And these kids, our senior class with Edwards, McLean, Holmes, and Tuberville really buy in to our system. And so, all they know is that it works, and every year we're working on getting
They know
better.
nothing else.
Right, so when freshmen come in, they're passing on that, hey, this is how we do to get to where we're at. And I tell you what, the last 3 years seniors have really made our job a lot easier to coach.
And is that, I'm obviously one of the things you want as a coach, and Coach Hill talked about it earlier today, in fact, was you want that senior leadership to command the locker room so you don't have to. Absolutely. Do you see that, and do you really get a feel for that in fall workouts, or do you almost have to wait until the spring?
It's weird. It always happens at a different time, but I always tell people, adversity's coming. If you're not going through it now, it's right around the corner, and it's usually right when adversity happens where you get to really see what kind of leadership. And I think this year, right towards the end of the fall, we really got to start to see some understanding, some closeness, and we brought in 10 new kids. So you kind of worry how that locker room's going to look, but they're going to the movies together, they're hanging out, they're doing functions as a team where everyone's showing up. Probably out of this group, it's weird. It's the most we've ever seen people hitting on their own, taking ground balls on their own, which is, every year it's been a little bit more, but this group in particular, I have to give them credit. They really prepare as professionals to come out here and do work on their own time.
Have you guys been able to, over the last, because you've seen this grow over the years, have you now put in place a system that not only polices itself, but you said has set a standard that has to be, and how hard is it, I asked you earlier tonight, how hard is it to keep a standard by compared to building a standard?
It's definitely hard. I think human nature is we all want to, get to a state of, oh, we have arrived, or this is going to continue to happen because we've done it already, of complacency. So, like for us, it's a constant reminder this is new and it's ongoing. Success is not a destination; it is a constant journey. And when they can buy into, hey, it's good because we're working on it, and it's only going to stay good because we continuously work on it. So we spend time once a week in a classroom talking about our culture and how we want it to look. And our team does a really good job of taking a lot of ownership. You know, when we write a mission statement, our coaching staff writes a mission statement of why we coach, and then our team writes a joint mission statement of how they want their team to be and why they play softball. And it's up to us as coaches to make sure they maintain it. But it's really their mission statement. So I think that's very valuable. It's a group effort between coaches and players working together.
The interesting thing is, to me, this is kind of an evolution of sports in general. Is the last 25 years, maybe especially with women's sports, is we've seen more of a player take ownership of their programs rather than a coach and a dictator. Have you seen that?
Yeah, I think it's just through studies, and you understand how to get the most out of your players and what they really want. And I think you could, when they understand that you care and they have ownership, they're also going to allow you to coach them more. And I think that's, if you take our last year senior class, that's what they allowed. You know, they allowed me to take our best players and coach them really hard, and it worked out well. And I think that's what's really being passed on. And today, in a day and age where there's all these transfers and everything else, I think you see what the culture did, like for Erica Piancastelli to want to stay at this program.
I guess the question is now, though, you have so many other things to deal with social media and that. Is it tougher to coach now?
You know, I think it's a different style. I think you have to be real informed. I think as a coach now, you have to be really prepared because kids are smart and players come in with a lot of access to a lot of different avenues, and you have to really. For me, it makes me better, which I love. I love the fact that if I slack one day, my players are going to call me out, and if we're not prepared for practice, like they're going to say, well, what's going on? And that's probably a different style for me. We're used to is kind of like, hey man, like I'm the coach. I don't think that's effective management anymore.
And now let's go to this team in particular. Standard been set 3 years in a row, NCAA tournament.
Yep.
So nothing less works, really, does it? And is this team prepared to take that step?
Yes, I think the team is ready. I think the way they're working right now and how their focus is now, if it comes or not, I don't know. But are we putting in the time and work and working on our team culture harder than we ever have before? Absolutely. They seem hungry. This senior class, I know, wants to go out with some good tradition. And that's what, you know, they also very aware that we've gotten to regional and they want more. And I think that's been the one thing I've seen from this team is they're not content on what's been done. They want more and they want to set a new standard for McNeese State softball.
Are you also at the stage where they don't want to be the first team in 4 years not to get there?
Yeah, that could be. You know, we hadn't talked about that before. That's whatever it takes to motivate you. You know, we always say there's something got to get your fire going in particular, and that's what we try to do a good job of. There's 26 kids. What gets their fire going?
Well, let's hope you get some good weather coming up for the first 6-7 games you're home, because that's a big thing. Get the games in.
It is, and to open up 6 games in front of our fans, so hopefully everyone comes out and sees us. Open up February 7th.
I want to thank McNeese State head softball coach James Landreneau for joining us this week, and we'll see you next week on This Week in Sports in Southwest Louisiana.